This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and today we have a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion back when the title meant something. He was in WCW as well. Wildfire, Tommy Rich. How are you doing today, sir?
Well, you doing all right tonight? Besides being cold.
Yeah, it's very cold here. It's about -20, so be happy you're not here.
Yes, sir.
You cut your hair since the last time I saw you.
What? Yeah, I cut it off. Yeah, got so hard. Too old for long hair. My wife said.
How did you end up being married for so long with all the girls that you've had over the years? You were one of the guys that the girls absolutely loved.
There was no Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just very blessed, man. I had a good wife. She put up with a lot of shit, but, it's all good. 41 years, man.
That's impressive. Yeah, I guess now, too, with the FaceTime where the wives could actually call the wrestlers and ask them to go on video, that would have screwed you guys over a little bit.
Yeah, it's a different world now.
I think it was Bill Dundee that told me that at one time you and him each had big vans where I guess Bill Dundee's wife is like, this is like a driving
Yeah, we both had, they same color and everything. You couldn't tell who was coming or who was going.
Why do you think today there's not the groupies that there used to be in wrestling back when you were a big star?
I don't think them guys are as good looking as I was. Yeah, I don't know, man, but it's a different following now, though. You're exactly right. Shoot, there was as many girls come that was guys.
Yeah, now it's mostly men. There's a small percentage of women, but I would say it's about 90% men that you see when you watch the shows nowadays.
Yeah, that's hard to believe because they got some good-looking young studs.
There's a fan, Joseph Napolitano, that wants to know how you came up with the Fez press as your finisher.
Jarrett, he used to use it when I first started. Jerry and Tojo Yamamoto trained me, and he told me to use that finish. And and of course Lou Thez, he was the originator, and just to do stuff that some of these great wrestlers have, it was an honor to use a Thez press because I know Lou Thez, that's where it come from. So it was an honor, and I had the honor to meet Lou Thez a few times, and he said, "Go on with it, kid." So it was good.
Who was your favorite opponent over the years? You had so many classic battles with guys like Ric Flair and Harley Race, Buzz Sawyer, so many to choose from.
And that's what makes it so hard. I was so blessed because everybody come through Atlanta, and it just. You say Harley, of course, Abdullah. I had a few matches with him, and Stan Hansen. Bruiser Brody was there. It was. I was a kid in the man's world, and they took the initiative to help me learn the business. And I listened too. I soaked it up because, at any time, any of them could whoop my ass. I knew that. So I didn't want to piss none of them off. So I just listened and did what I was told. And it took me far, The first night I went to Atlanta, Abdullah beat me in 30 seconds. Tony come save me. And after that, I thought, damn, I need to go back to Tennessee. And me and Tony stuck together and ended up being the first Salt and Pepper, champions of Georgia, tag team champions. It was good.
Speaking of Tony, I've interviewed him a few times, and he said that you could clear this up. You were there that night that Tony and Paul Orndorff got into it. Could you give me your version of the story?
I just won, they were just arguing about something, and one thing led to another. They pulled in between two tractor and trailers. Tony got Paul in a bear hug, and Paul bit his ear about off, his earlobe, and that was about the end of the fight. Tony said he cheated. I guess in a street fight, I don't know what cheating is, but I hated to see it because I like Paul and I like Tony too. It just them steroids, everybody was high strung back then, and just Tony said he could whoop anybody, and Paul said you can't whoop anybody, and one thing led to another. Next thing you know, we pulled over and they was out there tussling.
Yeah, Tony said that Paul had bit him because Tony was winning, and
Tony had him in a bear hug. What Paul couldn't do nothing, but that's old school. He bit his ear. His earlobe was hanging about off.
So Tony's telling the truth there, because I guess in Paul's version, Paul was winning and then he bit him even though. Okay.
It never even went, it wasn't like it was boom, boom, or this. They swung a couple of times. Tony grabbed him in a bear hug, and then Paul bit him, and it was over, just that quick, So, who wins in that situation? I don't think there's no winner anyway.
That must have been an uncomfortable ride to the hospital after that.
Oh, Lord, yeah. And then Tony had to stay about 3 days because of tetanus, the bite's bad. So they kept Tony in the hospital for 2 or 3 days with the antibiotics and stuff, So it was just a bad thing.
Now, for your feud with Harley Race and that brief moment that you won the title when nobody was expecting it, could you tell us about what led up to the title change and your overall thoughts of working with him so much over the years?
Well, Harley, and Harley was a great teacher. It was a pleasure. It didn't matter if you went, of course, you always went long back then, but, 20, 30 minutes. And then, with Harley, you go 45. But it was like a cakewalk because he was just so smooth,
Did you ever see Harley Race in action in any of his street fights? Because I understand he was a really tough guy as well.
I seen him one time just hit the boy like that. It looked about like that. And that boy was knocked out. Harley was tough. He was, of course, I wouldn't want to mess with none of them. But anyway, Harley was, he just was that old school, And back then, well, hell, they used to beat the shit out of each other in the ring, back in the day, the Funks and them. I watched some of them matches, man, and they just beat the daylights out of each other, and just think it was all fun and games.
Yeah.
I think, dang, it'd be easy and I'll sell the hell out of it for you, but they just, it's rugged. They fought, I know the money's a lot better now, but I wouldn't take nothing for the 80s, Of course, I can't flip off the top of a building or nothing anyway, so I probably wouldn't even be doing it if I had to do what they do today.
As far as winning the championship from Harley, is it true it was his idea to put you over in that match?
Yeah, sure was. Back then, you had to put 10 grand up for the title because the belt had the jewels in it. And Harley even he said, just leave my money on the kid, so I didn't even have to put the money up. Harley, I don't know what it was, but Harley really did like me a lot. And he helped me a whole lot too. Of course, all of them did. Superstar, Bill Eadie. Just all of them it was like anytime I got to wrestle somebody different, it was like an education. And I always listened, so, and I think that's a lot why they took an interest in me too.
I heard you mention a few minutes ago that the wrestlers today, they can do all this flips and all these gymnastics-like routines, but it doesn't seem like it's as popular as it was when you guys were on top. But it seemed like it was a lot more believable. Do you think that it's just not as popular these days because it's too much choreography and no kayfabe anymore? Or
yeah, and that has a lot to do with it because back in the day, if you was a heel, you was a heel. You didn't go out and sign autographs. I think everybody now wants to be an in-betweener. There's no good and bad, and you got to have good versus evil. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
How did you enjoy working with Eddie Gilbert during your run in Memphis?
Oh, Eddie was phenomenal. Like I was telling the captain a while ago, I grew up with Tommy. I used to go to matches with Tommy Gilbert and Eddie Marlin, and so I grew up with this kid. And so I knew him real well. And so, like Eddie used to take pictures when I first started, and then he started. And so we just ran together.
Now, Jim Barnett really liked you, and I understand he was one of the reasons why you were pushed in Atlanta. Do you have any memories of him? And he's remembered as kind of a genius in wrestling.
Oh, Mr. Barnett. I mean, we was talking about that earlier. He'd come to the big shows, and but he never was around a whole lot. But and he just was always good to me.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you wrestled Abdullah the Butcher a lot. Working with him, he was known sometimes he would take advantage of the younger guys. Did you ever have that issue with him? Obviously, you must have become friends.
Well, the first time like I said, when I come to Tennessee to Georgia, the first night I wrestled him, he beat me in 30 seconds. I got color, and Tony Atlas saved me. And he come back, and he said, "I'll give it back to you one day, kid." And I thought, oh, yeah. And then one night, Wahoo was supposed to wrestle him in the Omni, and Wahoo didn't show up, so I wrestled him. And he told me, he said, "Slam me, kid, slam me, kid." I said, I thought to myself, I can't slam him. I was about 220, and he was 400 or better. He said, "Slam me, damn it." So I tried, and I went under and got him, man. He swung up on my shoulder like he weighed 200 pounds. And I slammed him. That whole building went woo like that. And we come back to the back. He said, "I told you I'd give it back to you one day." I figured he'd already forgot about what he told me, because that was a year and a half later. And we come to the back. And he said, "Remember, I told you I'd give that back to you." And sure enough, he did,
You were one of the main players in the Battle of Atlanta there when Ann Gunkel started running opposition. Could you tell us a little bit about those times and how intense it got between the two companies?
It wasn't ever really bad. Ann didn't run that many shows, and that's when Crockett and them took over. Me and the Crockett's, we didn't have Davy Crockett was cool, but I didn't really care much about the other ones, and there was the ones that counted. So I never worked for them much.
There's a fan on here, Alan, that wants to know if you were disappointed that you never got another run with the title belts, and he wants to know if you feel that's because Crockett favored Flair.
Well, that may have something to do with it, but I was like really young, and that's a lot of responsibility being town after town. So, I seen the reasoning. I understood it, because that's, like I said, it's a lot of responsibility being in Georgia, then Carolinas, then Florida. You was on the road all the time, and I didn't really care much about being on the road.
Is that one of the reasons why you never went to WWE? Because you probably could have had a run there around the late 80s when you were still in your peak of popularity.
Yeah, Roddy Piper had me booked there one time, and as a matter of fact, Roddy had me booked, and that's when Ann opened up, and she put me on a pretty good guarantee. So anyway, when it come down to it, I just stayed home,
Did you end up having a match at all for them over the years?
I went up there when I first started for Vince Senior. I went up there, Mr. Barnett said, "You need to wrestle in the Garden one time, Tommy." And so anyway, I went up there and wrestled, and that was cool. That was a big thing too. But it just, up there was a different world from in the South. It was just much, I don't know. I can't say it was bigger because 17 went everywhere, but it just, to me, it was a different world. And at the time I was doing all right with Miss Gunkel, and so I didn't have to go.
How attractive was Ann Gunkel? Because I've heard she was absolutely gorgeous, and I guess she had an affair with Ted Turner supposedly at one point.
Yeah, now I don't know about that, but she was a beautiful lady. I mean, because when I went to work for her, she was kind of older and she still looked good, you know. So she was, I imagine in her younger days, she was quite the lady.
Now, you mentioned Piper almost got you hooked up with WWE. Do you have any stories about him, hanging out with him on the road?
Oh man, Roddy, me and him just we hung out together, and Roddy was just super good. I learned a lot from Roddy too. Of course, Roddy, he just didn't take no crap. Period from the promoter. So if they, he just tell him to kiss his ass and go on about his business. Roddy. I mean, of course, he was a good enough talent; he could do that too. You know.
What was he like out at the bars? Because I know he was a big partier in his younger days.
Yeah. Oh Lord, yeah. He was quite the cat. I mean, we go out drinking and shoot. Done some other things, some other party things too. But it was Roddy was cool. Me and him one day he got some of that smoky smoke, and we went to the wrong town, and Ole got madder than hell, was gonna fire Roddy, and Roddy said, "Go ahead." He was gonna fire both of us, and then Roddy said, "Well, just fire me." Ole said, "You're fired." About a week later, he was back, because he was such a great talent.
Yeah, that smoky smoke is legal up here in Canada now, all across Canada.
I need to be up there with you. No,
It's a trade-off for the bad weather.
hey, I might could do a little trading like that.
Do you think that Ric Flair would have lasted in the WWE today with all of his antics when he would party? We hear about him dancing around at bars naked and stuff. Would they keep him around with cell phone cameras and all this?
I don't know if he got quite away with all that stuff like he did back then, But yeah, he didn't like me because I drank me a 12-pack before I wrestled, and told him I was an alcoholic. But at the same time, he was going out at the bars, showing himself off. So I don't know if that's any better than what I was doing. I always did my job. I had to go 45 minutes. I went 45. I wanted to go an hour. I'd go an hour. So I never had no problem with it. And he's about the only one that ever said anything about it.
That's strange. How was he to be in the ring with?
Hey, Rick was good. He was good in the ring. But the difference, I think, the difference between Harley Race, say, and Ric Flair, Rick would have the same match with me as he would you, where Harley, he would wrestle your style and wrestle my style. So Rick had pretty much the same match with everybody, where Harley would change it up to your style of what you did. He'd watch all the matches and see what everybody was doing, and he'd go out there and like me. I mean, he just carried me. I got the utmost respect for Harley. God bless him.
Why was your AWA run so short? You did that big angle with Kevin Kelly and Sherry Martel, feuded with Adrian Adonis there a bit, but it seemed like the run didn't last very long.
Well, it was cold, but Wahoo was doing the booking, and I went up there, and it just, I was away from my family. I had a wife and 3 kids, and so it just wasn't the right thing.
Do you have any memories of working with the Missing Link?
I worked with him, I think, one time, but we had a good match. It's kind of like dancing, You got a leader and a follower, and I just could follow everybody real good, So it's like they asked me today, who's your favorite match with? But like Superstar and shoot, I got to wrestle. Everybody come through Atlanta, so I got to wrestle the cream of the crop, and whether it would be in a tag with Tony or whether I'd be doing a singles run, So I got to wrestle. And that's why longevity was so good in Georgia, because I do the tags. And then they'd need somebody for a single. Well, I'd go into the singles. So it worked out real good for me.
Did you ever wrestle superstar Billy Graham?
No, sir, I sure didn't. I met him a couple of times, and he was very nice. I mean, I met him. He come into Atlanta, like he'd come in for a couple of shots and then be gone, but never wrestled me.
How was Bruiser Brody to be in the ring with?
Oh, I never wrestled Bruce. I wrestled with him. Jerry Blackwell started running Deep South Wrestling, and Brody would come in and work with Jerry, and he'd come out to my house and stay because he didn't want Jerry to have to pay for a hotel room. Brody was a cool, he was really cool. I mean, if he liked you, you was in. But if he didn't, then God bless you.
How was working with the Freebirds?
It was, Big Terry, he was the backbone of that team, Of course, Michael Hayes, he was the mouthpiece, but Big Terry run that show.
Yeah, I suspect that Michael wouldn't have had any problems with you drinking before a match.
Oh, Lord, no. The only time my wife was ever going to kick me out, I was hanging out with them, and they was on that Jack Daniels. And she told me, she said, "You don't quit drinking that." I said, "I quit. I didn't want to get kicked out." Yeah. But yeah, they was on that JD. That beer's about heavy as I can get.
Whose idea was it for you to do that angle where you hid under the ring before attacking Jerry Lawler during that match Lawler had with Austin Idol?
That was Lawler. That Lawler, he was creative. I was on that ring for about 6 hours, 7 hours, something like that. Had a air mattress and a 6-pack of beer.
Was Buzz Sawyer as crazy as people say he was? People say he was a big drug user and a big drinker.
Well, he liked to party. Of course, we all did back then. So, but he was a wild man, Buzz was.
Yeah, he sounds like a guy you wouldn't want to mess with.
Yeah. I seen one night we wrestled in Williamson, West Virginia, and it was one little store where we'd stop to get some beer. We coming out, and all of a sudden this guy comes up to Buzz and look around, and he's done suplexed him in the pavement. Buzz too, He got up, that boy just laid there. They had to call the ambulance to come get him. And Buzz, he didn't give a shit about nothing.
Did you ever have problems with fans when you were a baby face because the girls loved you so much, like being swarmed by fans or anything like that?
No, well, I was telling Captain a while ago that, like we wrestled in Charleston, West Virginia, and the building was next to the Holiday Inn. And I told the lady in there, I said, "Well, if we sell this thing out, your bar," I said, "can we drink free?" She said, "Yeah," laughing at me because they never did no business. We always stayed there in the bar, wasn't never nobody in it. So anyway, I was wrestling Buzz that night, and I said, "After I kick your ass, we're going to have a party at the Holiday Inn bar." And then people, they had to call extra security. We got out of the car, and the fans, we took off running just like a rock and roll, deal. It was, the fans, it was a lot different. The fans were a lot different then they are now,
Yeah, they believed. What about when you were a heel? Did you ever have any problems with fans going after you as a heel?
Oh, yeah. The scariest I ever been was the night I hid under that ring. I come out from under that ring. We did that to Lawler. And one guy tried to climb over the fence. When he come down, the police beat him up. And we had to stay in the ring for about 30 minutes to more police. They built a barricade so we could get out of the ring.
How did you end up signing with WCW, and what was the pay like in those days for WCW?
It was good. Of course, like I said there again, when Crockett took over, I was on my way out anyway. They were doing a TV show in Charlotte and told me and Thunderbolt that we had to drive. Everybody else was flying. Me and Thunderbolt, neither one made the trip.
Now in WCW, you were with the York Foundation, Alexander York, and Ricky Morton. How was she to work with? Because there's mixed stories about her in the wrestling world.
She was just starting, so she just kind of stood to the side and we did our thing. But and the whole deal on that was Crockett. He was mad at Ricky and mad at me. So he turned his heel so the fans wouldn't holler for us.
I see. Is it true that Alexandra York dated a bunch of the guys? Like, I know she dated Dustin and Brian Pillman, but there was stories that it was more than those boys as well.
Oh, yeah, I heard she dated everybody, I never dated her, but I heard she dated everybody.
You did, well, you at least had something going with Missy Hyatt at one point, didn't you?
That's rumors.
Okay.
That's rumors. That's what she put in her book, I think.
Yeah, she put something about it in her book. But,
yeah. No, I never fooled Missy Hyatt.
For Terry Taylor, you worked with him in the York Foundation too. A lot of people don't like him. How did you get along with him?
Well, he was strictly a company man, So, but I didn't hang out with Terry. He didn't hang out with none of us. He hung out with the office. So I never did much dealings with him. I mean, just as far as in the ring, he was okay.
Who would have been the stiffest wrestler you ever worked with?
Well, the Road Warriors, when they first started, and then Stan Hansen was pretty stiff too.
Okay.
Stan, he said he couldn't see. I think he could see. He just liked to be stiff.
Yeah, I heard that from a few people. They said that was his excuse for roughing people up.
Yeah. But Stan was good people, though. I mean, I love Stan to death. I drew money with him as a heel, him wrestling him, and then we drawed money in the tag team, wrestling Ole and Ivan Koloff.
And how was Ole Anderson to work with and work for? There's so many mixed stories about him.
Well, he was a prick, but if you drawed money, then you was okay. I mean, he wasn't a big Tommy Rich fan, but he knew he drawed money with me, so I was okay. I mean, I don't know. Everybody says he's an asshole. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I said, he ain't another one I never went and had dinner with, so I don't know. I wouldn't go to the building, do my job, and leave. But he could be a prick. I mean, he could make you mad.
Do you have any stories about the Iron Sheik? I know you wrestled with him before.
I was just telling them earlier. One day, Ole was looking for Sheik and Buzz, and we was up in West Virginia, and we went over to the hotel, knocked on the door, and the room was just demolished. They'd been in there fighting all night, seeing who was the toughest.
Who was in there with the Iron Sheik that night?
Buzz Sawyer. It was Buzz and the Sheik. And, Buzz thought he could whoop anybody and Sheik too. And that room, they had tore it up, son.
Wow. Did Buzz get the better of him? Because Buzz seems.
I don't know. They both said they won. I mean, I don't think nobody won when they had to pay the bill on the room.
No. How did you like your time in ECW?
That was great. It was. I had never managed in my life. And they asked me, said, "Would I manage?" I said, "I don't have to wrestle." They said, "No." I said, "Well, hell yeah, it was the same money." So yeah, I said, "Yeah, I'd definitely like to manage." But it was good. I enjoyed the hell out of that. But I enjoyed ECW. Of course, it was like night and day to me from what I'd been. I'd seen a little bit of it on TV, but when I went up there, man, them boys was crazy.
Crazy as far as behind the scenes or in the ring?
Well, both. They'd stand there and let somebody hit them in the chair, hit them in the head with a chair. Somebody go swing a chair at me, I'm going to throw my arms up. They would just stand there to see who could take the worst hit.
Did you ever wrestle Taz when you were up there?
No, I never wrestled Taz.
How did you find him backstage?
He was always nice to me. I mean, you hear some people say he's a prig. I don't know, but I always got along with him.
What about New Jack? Did you ever get in the ring with him?
No, I never wrestled him or wrestled with him either one. No, uh, probably glad I didn't. Just I seen him take advantage of so many kids, and just stuff that's uncalled for. And I just ain't about none of that.
Now, you were in the Full-Blooded Italians with Tracy Smothers, who unfortunately passed away last year. Any thoughts about him and that tragic loss?
Yeah, I mean, and you look at Tracy. I mean, he didn't smoke or nothing, and come down with that cancer, boy, and it just took a hold of him. Yeah, when they was in Atlanta, him and Steve Armstrong, as the Southern boys. I knew Tracy real good.
What do you think about today that they have some wrestlers that I don't know if they used to be men or if they still have the body parts or whatever, dressing up like women, and they call them transgender wrestlers, wrestling in the women's division? That wouldn't have happened back in the 80s, but things are a lot different now.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't happen back in the 80s. I'd have to leave too if I run across it. I'd have to leave too. Yeah, I don't know. But it's like you said. It's changed so much. It's open to anything they want to do now.
Do you watch any of the products that are on TV these days?
Not in a while. I hadn't. I watch AEW some.
Okay.
But that's about it, because that's right there in Georgia. Where I'm at.
Have they ever talked to you about coming in to do anything?
No, no.
How did you get along with Dusty Rhodes over the years?
Oh, Dusty was cool. I always we'd always go out drinking when they come into Georgia. We'd go out and have a good time.
Now, what was the worst injury you had over the years in the ring?
I wrestled Bob Backlund and hyperextended my knee.
Did you have to finish the match?
So that's about the worst one.
Okay. Did you have to continue the match?
Yeah, we finished the match. Yeah. We were wrestling in Augusta, Georgia.
Now, with all the wrestlers breaking kayfabe and how you say it's changed so much, what would you do if you wanted to get a company going again to try and make it popular? Is there any techniques you would use if you were a booker?
I don't know what you could do, to be honest. I mean, it's all been laid out, I mean, they've exposed it. So, I mean, I don't know what you could do.
There is a fan that wanted to know if you've ever seen any backstage fights throughout your career.
I've seen wrestling too, and the Great Mephisto, Frankie Kane, one night. They got back after a match and got into it. Wrestling too, front faced him, took him down, and then Frankie bit a big chunk out of his side, so that broke that fight up.
It seems like in those days there was a lot of biting and eye gouging.
A lot of kicking and scratching and carrying on, yeah.
Did you ever see Haku in action over the years?
No, I seen the Samoans, Alpha and them. I seen them one time. Well, somebody got after Michael Hayes, and they come in and just wiped house.
Did you ever wrestle Don Morocco in your career?
Oh, yeah, I wrestled Don, yeah. He was good. Very good. I like Don, yeah.
What advice would you give to baby faces today watching this about how to get over? You were such a great face over the years.
Well, see, my thing was it was a selling. Nobody sells no more. It's just boom, 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 boom. And the selling's what gets it over.
And what about being a heel?
See, I like being a heel. it was easy to tell them just go to hell, because I'd been a baby face and I went to Tennessee. It was a hill. It was nice not to have to deal with the people.
Is it true when you were a baby face in your younger days, some of the promoters would actually expect the baby faces to have sex with a lot of the fans because it kept them coming back?
Oh, well, yeah, you'd go out and sign autographs and hug them and kiss them and all that. Yeah, that was part of your job.
What was the pay like throughout your career? Because you had such big crowds in the 80s, I'd imagine that the payoffs would have been pretty good in those days.
Yeah, it was. I mean, for me, of course, I was, 20 years old, so it was real good money. I mean, we made good money. I mean, some shows it'd be a small one, and it wouldn't be as good.
Who ended up training you to be a professional wrestler?
Jerry Jarrett and Tojo Yamamoto.
What was that training like? I guess back in those days, it was harder to break in.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, well, I grew up around it, and it was hard. Tojo beat the hell out of me, and then of course I started wrestling pretty quick.
What did you think of Jerry Jarrett as a booker and as a payoff guy?
He took good care of me, and I mean he was very smart to the business. He had a good mind for the business.
How did you like wrestling in that Tennessee territory overall?
Well, it was good. I mean, I first started as a babyface, and then when I went to Georgia, come back, and Lawler was the number one babyface, so you had to be a heel if you wanted to make money because you'd wrestle him. And so I enjoyed it.
Did you ever wrestle Kamala?
Yeah, I sure did. Yeah, I sure did. He was good. Nice and easy. He looked like he'd kill you, but he was nice and easy.
What about Dr. D, David Schultz?
Oh, I know David. Yeah, he was a crazy one.
Crazy in what way?
He didn't give a shit for nothing. Somebody in that crowd come up, he'd go out there and whoop ass. He got in trouble for that kind of just anything. He didn't give a damn.
Did you have much interaction with Andre the Giant over the years, or you have any stories about him?
Yeah, I used to have that van you was talking about, me and Bill Dundee. And I had a horseshoe, like in the back of the thing, it had a table that would let down into a bed. And I'd take that table up, and it's like a little horseshoe, and put the cushions down. And Andre would ride with me and Ricky Martel.
Okay.
He'd sit back there with his arms up on the thing. It was wild, yeah.
Could he drink as much as people say?
Oh, Lord, yeah. And then some, probably.
Wow.
Yeah. First time I ever met him, I had a 7-ounce. I took it back to Nashville. He got a case of quart Budweisers, and I got a pony pack of Millers. And I had that 7-ounce in my hand, and he had that quart, and it looked like he had a 7-ounce in his hand. He was just a big man.
Rick Martel, he's a pretty great wrestler. He went on to be AWA World Champion. What was he like to hang out with?
Oh, we had a lot of fun. Me and him, teamed up with tag champs. And, Ricky, yeah, we got along good.
He's kind of soured on the business in recent years. He doesn't want anything to do with it anymore.
Is that right? I mean, I hadn't talked to him in forever.
Are you still getting in the ring here and there?
Every now and then, but with this COVID, it's ain't nobody running.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Have you had to get a shoot job with COVID happening, or have you been all right?
No, I'm surviving. It's all right.
Yeah. How is it in Georgia? Are the restrictions pretty bad?
Well, can't nobody run no shows. I mean, some of these little backyard things, which ain't no money there, 20 people, so you don't want to work them.
Do you have any stories about Terry Funk?
No, I wasn't never around Terry too much. So he come in, and we'd hang out a little bit, but not much.
Yeah, you didn't wrestle too much in Texas, did you?
No, I wrestled for Bosch a couple of times and then for Joe Blanchard.
Is it true Bosch was a really good payday?
Yeah, very good man, yeah.
What did you think of Tully Blanchard?
Tully could work, he always did his job.
There's a fan that wanted to know if you have any stories about Dr. Mike Lano, the photographer. I don't know if that's a joke or not.
I don't either. I don't know. I don't even know who that is.
What about Iron Mike Sharp? Did you ever get in the ring with him?
No, but he got locked in the building one night because he was so clean.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, that was a funny story. I don't know what the whole deal was, but yeah, he got locked in the building.
Did you ever get in the ring with Randy Savage in Memphis or anywhere?
No, I never wrestled Randy. He was in Georgia, just starting, as a matter of fact. And then he went on and, of course, made a name for himself up in New York. So, but I wasn't never around Randy a whole lot.
Is there any wrestlers over the years that you worked with that you were surprised that they went on to be big stars and you didn't think they would be very big?
Shit, they was already all big stars anyway.
Yeah.
Like in my era, that was all.
Tons of stars. Did you ever wrestle Joe LeDuc?
No, but I seen him one day on Memphis TV take an axe and just cut his arm wide open. He was in a lumberjack match and just cut it. I mean, it was awful, I thought. But yeah, he was a mean son of a gun too.
What do you think about the popularity of women's wrestling today? It's become so much popular, even more popular than men's almost.
It just about, I agree with you. It's more entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's good-looking girls rolling around, even if it's choreographed.
Yeah, I mean, who ain't gonna look at that, But and shit, they take some bumps and shit too. I mean, it's I don't know. It's a different world now. I mean, because like you said, it's more popular probably than the men.
Yeah, they don't really have too many stars left for the men. I guess they got Brock Lesnar's not wrestling right now, and Goldberg. I don't know how much longer he has left.
Yeah, shoot, they just don't have no new faces. It's hard just to show the same thing over and over. I think that hurts.
There's a fan that wants to know if you have any stories about Arn Anderson.
I never was around Arn too much. He was in Charlotte and I was in Georgia. I wasn't never really around him too much. He come in and wrestled with Ole some in Georgia, but I never wrestled him.
What did you think about Paul Heyman, and are you surprised he's still in a position of power in the business?
Ain't that something? I mean, of course, he has a pretty good head on his shoulders, I guess, for the business. But I don't know. I mean, he's got a good end up there with Vince, I reckon.
You worked with the fabulous ones, Steve Keirn and Stan Lane. How were they to be in the ring with?
Oh, they were good. Steve was tough. Steve, he wrestled, so it was tough.
There's a fan that wants to know what's the craziest thing you've seen a ring rat do over the years.
Shit, I had one run around my van naked.
Outside of the van?
A girl run around my van naked. They clocked me doing 30 miles an hour running around my damn van naked. Boobs just a flopping.
Is that before or after someone had their way with her?
Oh, I don't know. I just came out.
There's a fan that wants to know, when you guys were wrestling, how much of it was planned, because we know now on WWE every single punch is planned and there's nothing.
Oh, you had maybe an opening, a heat spot, and a finish. The rest of it was ad lib. You know, Bully Bob Armstrong, he called it vaudeville. You know, Shakespeare. You just went out there and you can't have a bunch of spots because people might not be buying what you're selling. You got to go out there and work to the crowd, you know, and they don't do that no more. I think that's one thing that hurts the business.
Did you wrestle for Ron Fuller much over the years?
Yeah, Continental. Yeah, Ron was a good person to work for.
Was that one of your favorite territories to go to? I understand it was pretty easy to work there.
Oh yeah, and it was short trips. I mean, down in Florida, you know, Pensacola.
Was there more camaraderie with the wrestlers back in those days compared to today? I know you're still in independent dressing rooms, or was there more like tension backstage? Well,
you know, back then, you know, the heels was on one side, the baby faces was on the other side. You didn't have the comfort of being in the same dressing room to go over a bunch of shit. You know, you just went out there and like I said, you had an opening, a heat spot, and a finish, and the rest you just did in the ring.
Did you ever consider being a trainer for professional wrestling?
I tried it in Myrtle Beach, but it wasn't right. It's a tourist town, so it didn't really work out good. I enjoyed it, you know, but it wasn't a good market.
Did you play any sports before you got into wrestling?
Yeah, I played football and wrestled in high school. Yeah.
How did you do in amateur wrestling?
Got whooped a lot and whooped some, you know. That was a learning experience.
What made you want to become a pro wrestler?
I seen them driving them Lincolns and Cadillacs. Of course, I drove LTD four-door Ford. LTD, I didn't get that Lincoln till later. You know, yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, you didn't get that shit when you first started.
How old would you have been when you first started?
18. Just turned 18.
Okay. So that would have been quite something, being thrown onto the road with some of these characters from back in those days.
Oh, yeah, and they were characters back then, too. You know, Danny Hodge, shit, there's a bunch of them. You know, Big Bad John. I was around a lot of them.
Did you ever see Hodge stretch anyone?
No, I never seen him stretch nobody, but didn't nobody mess with him for him to stretch anyway. Yeah, he was tough.
Were you ever on any shows when they would take fans into the ring and have a guy like Harley?
Dale Lewis. Yeah. Dale Lewis. I've seen him put that sugar hold on a few of them and make that blood squirt out their eyes. Yeah, he was tough.
Did you ever wrestle for Bill Watts?
A few times. He didn't want to pay me, so I didn't want to go.
Okay.
You know, he would pay me like, you know, he did anyway. You know, yeah, it wasn't one of my favorite places to go.
Long drives there in Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, they did a really hard-hitting style, which would have taken its toll on the body.
Well, and not just that. I mean, just in miles they did. I mean, they was on the road all the time.
How did you like working for All Japan Pro Wrestling?
It was good. I was dumb and didn't go. I should have went a bunch more and just dumbed myself out of that money. You know, I mean, you made good money, and met the bus, go do your job, they take you to the hotel. So that was a good place to work.
Who were some of the wrestlers you wrestled over there in Japan?
Tenryu, Inoki, damn. Been so long since I've been there, I can't even think of it. And then I wrestled a lot of the underneath kids. Jumbo Sarutas, I can't think of his name. Jumbo, that's what they called him. I had a few matches. He was tough too. Yeah, you got to go out there and fight him.
Did you ever have a wrestler try and shoot on you in the ring?
No, I can say I actually didn't. Never. And I've seen some that had problems, but I was blessed, and I never had no problems. Very lucky because tempers do get hot sometimes. But I just went with the flow anyway. I didn't, I was too young to get mad.
Being over there in Japan, did the mafia guys ever take you out for any big dinners or party nights?
Oh, yeah, we went out. Yeah, they'd take you out at the big shows, and you'd see some of them with missing two fingers, where they done got in trouble. But yeah, we went out quite a few times.
So I guess you just didn't like the travel, so that's why you didn't take any more bookings. It wasn't that they didn't want to use you more in Japan.
Yeah, I done myself. Yeah, I done myself out of that. I look back and wish I went more.
Would Atlanta have been your favorite territory over the years?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, you didn't have no long trips. It was just easy going. So yeah, Atlanta was my favorite.
Did you ever wrestle any of the Von Erichs over the years?
They all come in to Atlanta. I wrestled with Kerry's tag team. They came in. They was good.
Yeah, they were good. It's unfortunate they had all those problems.
Ain't that something? I mean, I ain't no explanation for that. I just don't know.
Which of the wrestlers' deaths hit you the hardest? You must have lost a lot of people you knew over the years.
Well, Piper, and Brody, that was shocking.
What were you thinking when you heard about Brody? Because, I mean, for that to happen in a dressing room is a little bit insane, especially the guy got away with it.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I thought at first, you think it's a joke. And then,
What do you think the real story was there? Do you think the office owed him money and they covered it up and had the booker do it? Or what do you think? Because he wasn't even feuding with the guy that killed him at the time.
I don't have a clue about it. I hate to say something I don't know nothing about. But like, they'd had trouble before, I think.
I see.
And, but I don't know nothing about it.
Did you wrestle much over in Puerto Rico?
I went there about 3 times, and it was just it was getting so wild over there. I just,
The pay probably wasn't great either, and the fans are crazy.
Crazy, yeah. Yeah, you had to worry about them.
How did the new Fabulous Ones team come about with you and Eddie Gilbert?
Jarrett, that was a bad deal. I mean, Stan and Steve was a fabs. We were like prefab.
Who was your favorite booker to work with over the years?
Well, the Fullers was good. The Fullers, I mean, I like working in Atlanta, but Oldie was hard to get along with. It was just easy going in Continental.
Do you still keep in touch with many wrestlers these days from the glory years?
Just if we see them on the road, man, shoot, everybody I know is about dead. The ones I run with.
How's your health holding up? You still look like you're doing pretty well.
Well, besides putting on a few pounds, I'm doing okay.
You still work out in the gym regularly?
I never worked out in the gym.
Really?
No, I did. I wrestled every day. I thought that's all I needed. I worked on cardio, but I wasn't much on pumping the iron.
I guess when you're going hour Broadways on a regular basis, that's pretty good. What's the longest match you ever had? I know you had some that were close to 2 hours.
Yeah, with Ole and Ivan in Marietta, Georgia. We went 60, 90 in 2 hours. Sold it out every Sunday for 3 weeks. Just did a Broadway.
And for that, you're talking very little beforehand too, right? You're just going in there and wrestling.
Yeah, and then that you just knew the finish just about. It was just the rest of it you did out in the ring.
There's a fan that wants to know who had more girls, you or Ricky Morton?
Ricky Morton. I don't know. My wife might be picking this up.
How did you like being on the road with Ricky in WCW? Did you guys get along pretty well?
Oh, yeah. I've known Ricky, forever. And he started in Tennessee a little after I did. And, I've always of course, if you can't get along with Ricky, you can't get along with nobody.
No, that's true. Did you have a regular guy that you like to travel with on the road? I know Tony Atlas was probably one of them.
Yeah, Tony. And you had your little groups that you travel with. Brad Armstrong. Piper was a lot of fun. Rick Martel. So it was, everybody was coming through. So, and I was just there. So you just meet up, you'd take off, you'd hit it off, and that's who you went with.
How did you get along with Matt Bourne?
He was difficult, but I always got along with him good after I knew him.
Yeah, a lot of guys didn't get along with him. I know Brian Blair had a fight with him at one point.
Is that right? I don't know. Of course, Matt would fight you at the drop of a towel anyway, whether he thought he'd win or not. He just liked to fight.
There's a fan on here that's wondering if you have any Michael Hayes stories.
Not really, just about getting me a divorce over drinking that JD. Yeah, that's about the only one. Yeah, that pretty much separated me from them. We wrestled, but I didn't associate too much.
Was drinking accepted in the dressing room in like the 70s and 80s? You could just like have a 12-pack of beer and nobody would care?
Pretty much. Or you might not bring in the dressing room. You might walk out your car and drink one or two.
Right.
Helps
with the pain.
Yeah, no shit.
Who would your favorite feud have been with that you made the most money feuding with?
Probably Buzz. I mean, we went 2 years. So that's a pretty long time.
I guess he wasn't as stiff with you as he was with some of the younger guys.
I told him, I said, you hurt me, I can't do it. And he never did. He never did hurt me. Every now and then he want to try something new. And I was his guinea pig. But, he never hurt me too much at all.
There's a fan on here that wants to know, when did you start seeing more drug use in the business? I know at a time in the 80s it started to get more prevalent.
Probably the 80s, I mean, I started in 76. 80s, that was pretty wide open.
It was like that with everyone in entertainment, though, at that time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was because it was like a new thing or something.
You know where it's also like, Hannibal? Every time I have one of my prestige clients, like Tommy Wildfire Rich, like Marty Jannetty, like Ted Arcidi, you take advantage of them time after time. The captain's good nature. You try to take advantage of me, Hannibal.
Good nature. There's nothing good natured about you.
That is very disrespectful. You're lucky that the borders are closed right now, or I would be coming to Canada, and I have some Hannibal hands. You see these?
Yeah, I hope you have a gun. I hope you have a gun.
Oh,
That's
listen, Hannibal. Hannibal, maybe I do. Maybe I have an army. I have the captain's army. I don't need a gun, but you're
I have the Hannibal Holics backing me up.
All right, yeah, Hannibal Holics.
Thank you for